Good morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever time of day it is for you. Um, I just started rereading a manga that I had been reading before. It is called Today the Villainess Has Fun Again. I'm on chapter 31. I've made it a bit further than last time. I stopped reading it for, I want to say, maybe 6 months or so. Um, I had completely forgotten about it. I still had it bookmarked, but because it had been so long, I was like, I don't remember what this is about anymore. Um, there are some spoilers because this one is really difficult to beat around the bush, um, and not give anything away. So I put it in the title that there are spoilers and the name of the manga that I'm talking about. We start off with our main character, who is a duke's daughter. Um, she is a transmigrator, I believe. I don't remember very much of the beginning because I started at like 5 chapters in and started reading up. I do know that the original Leyland or Raylan, they switch her name a lot, just as they do with her Beastman companion. They switch his name quite a bit. I don't know if that's just because they don't uh, that that person couldn't figure out what the name was, or just thought it would be easier to pronounce it a different way. Um, so her name is what she's introduced as is Leyland Sean or Shane Shan Candemian, or catamine, something like that. The names are really difficult to pronounce. Anyway, she's engaged to the crown prince. Now, the original story is the crown prince starts going with the female lead, and Leyland becomes the villainess. Um, and in the original story, the female lead ew, is just trash as far as I'm concerned. Um, she's gathering all these fishes to put in her little fish tank and gains enough power to actually fight with the Duke's daughter. I have read quite a bit of this story before. I'm not entirely sure how far I have gotten. Right now, I'm on chapter 31, and the emperor is about to tell his son that you are no longer crown prince unless you can get Leyland back as your fiance or some shit like that. Um, most stories that I see like this, um, the emperor is always trying to find a way to bring down the duchy or the grand duchy so that he gains more power. This one, I love the way they did it because instead of fighting with the duchy, they're working together. And to make the imperialist faction stronger, they plan to marry the crown prince and the daughter of the duke to each other. So they were engaged. And the emperor holds her in high esteem because she leads the imperial faction. Which at first I was like, wait, how does a duke's daughter lead the imperial faction? And then I started paying attention to the people around her, and I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. She just happened to be friends with people on the side of the imperialists, um, on the side of the royal family. I'm going to stick with royal family because, wow. um, she just happened to get really close to these girls that are on that side, and Iris has chosen the side of the noble faction. I don't know if she did that on purpose or if that just happens to be how it was. But from what I've seen from Iris so far, our female lead supposedly, excuse me, sorry, I have hiccups. Um, I don't know if she, um, what exactly her goal is because I don't remember much about her because, well, she wasn't my favorite character. But she's hardcore gunning to bring down Leyland. Like, no matter what, she wants to steal everything from her. And it gets to one point in the chapters where Leyland goes to Rosemarie's, which is a boutique for dresses and stuff like that. And Iris says straight out, I know which jewel you treasure the most. And basically saying, I'm gonna win. And Leyland's like, dude, you're stupid. Um, of course, the soul that takes over Leyland's body knows how to use the Duke's daughter's power, the Candemian power. She knows how to use it, when to use it, and is using it so damn well that no one can fault her. Everyone is taking her side. That's how difficult a villainess is supposed to be, in my opinion. The original Leyland was stupid. She was crawling on the floor, begging for the prince to love her and all this crap. And all I keep thinking to myself is why. And of course, the Leyland that's in her body now doesn't have any memories of the Crown Prince because the original Leyland has blocked those memories off. I'm not entirely sure why. She probably just wanted to protect those memories, or that was just her clinging to the hope that maybe he's not a complete jackass. There are only two stories that I have seen where the Duke's daughter actually is doing good, but everyone's trying to make her out to be the bad guy. Um, this one in particular is one of my favorites just because of the character development. They don't throw everything at you at once. Of course, it is a bit complicated uh, picking up some of the story pieces and stuff like that. But she accomplishes things that her dad wasn't able to, which her dad is absolutely obsessed with her. He loves her to death. Um, The other story, I cannot remember the name of it, but the Duke's daughter on that side also had the same amount of power as the crown prince. So they were literally on equal footing, and that was only because she was engaged to the crown prince. Otherwise, she's got more power than the prince does because the emperor allows her to. Because he's not going to fight with the duchy over it when they've been supporting him. And of course, in the one I'm reading now, the crown prince doesn't seem to understand that. He's an idiot. Just because he's hot, he thinks he can get away with it. In my opinion, though, I kind of like the commoner knight a lot more, which I can never remember his damn name. Um, I like his character a lot more than the crown prince, even though the crown prince is my type. Um, Not his personality, but his looks are right up my alley. But I don't care for shitty personalities. Um, the last one that I read that I can't remember the name of, the Duke's daughter also led the royal fraction, and was supporting the royal family. Uh, they were basically providing the living wages to the imperial palace because the imperial palace was poorer than the duchy. I've read several that are like that, but usually it's a male lead, not a female lead. Um, this one happened to be a female lead, and the duke's daughter was unwillingly engaged to the crown prince. She did not want to be engaged to him, but it was a political marriage. Um, she ends up breaking off the engagement at a banquet, and in front of the emperor, her father, and all the nobles, and all of that, she tells the crown prince, "You're a piece of shit, and I refuse to be engaged to you any longer." The emperor is then pissed, tells the crown prince that I am stripping you of your title. You are now nothing but a commoner. Get out of my palace. Basically kicks him and his little girlfriend out. The former crown prince is then extremely pissed and keeps trying to get her back while still dating that chick. And of course, that chick is pissed because not only did she lose her big powerful fish, but now she's reduced to a commoner and can never step foot into the palace again. Um, and of course, they're struggling to survive, and he keeps trying to find the duke's daughter. Well, this duke's daughter, to weaken the nobles, she goes around all sorts of villages, other people's fiefs, and stuff like that, and gets on the good side of the commoners, like helps them find better jobs that pay well, that can move their families elsewhere. She offers them a deal. And if she starts out with homeless people, orphans, the norm, and then moves up to commoners who work hard for a living but are not getting paid well for what they do, and kind of just takes them back to the duchy. Then she starts going after the knights, offers them a deal after seeing what they what kind of issues they have to deal with that they shouldn't have to deal with. They're knights for crying out loud, but okay. Um, so she's gathering all this power, not really meaning to. Um, she just happens to get into all of these situations and ends up helping the lower people than nobles. In fact, she keeps attacking the nobles because the nobles are trash. And so she's gathering the commoners, the knights, the jobless, the homeless, the orphans, all of this, and bringing them to the duchy, which is building the duchy's power plus its income. Because now the nobles who are losing money, who are on the noble fraction, are then dropping that fraction altogether and trying to get a contract or a deal or a business association with the duchy so that they can keep their power, um, so that they can maintain their wealth and whatnot. So the noble faction is losing power very fast. The noble faction also has the mages tower. I believe they called them mages in that one. Yeah, I think they were mages. Um, Also has the mages tower, and one of the mages, the master of the mage tower, ends up being really fond of the duke's daughter, and and basically is keeping a real close eye on her and what she does. He also doubles as a guild leader who gathers a ton of information and will sell it to the highest bidder. And he keeps hearing nobles and the female lead, the male lead, supposed male lead, um, come to him and ask him to assassinate the Duke's daughter. He turns it down every time because the pay is not high enough. Not with what he's going to have to deal with, because not only is she a very powerful mage herself, but all the knights that she has gathered and some of the commoners that she has gathered are very skilled mages themselves. Even some of the orphans, and the orphans have decided to be her bodyguards. And because they've lived in the streets or out in the woods for God knows how long, they are very, very adept in getting rid of people that should not be where they're supposed to be. Um, So he's like, no, you can't pay me enough to do this. And of course, the crown prince and the female lead are getting, well, the former crown prince and the female, this used to be female lead, are really pissed off. They start fighting with each other and all sorts of crap. No one cares about their damn drama. So, anyway, in this one, since the crown prince had lost his power, his older brother became the crown prince, as he was originally supposed to. But because the the duke's daughter didn't like him and got engaged to the second prince, he was given the title of crown prince because that was going to bring the duchy together, the duchy and the royal family together, and consolidate their power. Well, she ends up leaving the the second prince and her and the first prince start working together. Um, Now, the first prince has always had a crush on her and has done anything and everything to support her throughout everything. Um, if she needs help with something, she would go to him and ask him for help, knowing that her fiance would not do squat for her because he's too busy dating the little slut. So, the crown prince, the now crown prince, is still supporting her, still taking care of her, making sure that she's actually okay with the annulment of the engagement because she was really attached to him, like completely obsessed with him. Of course, no one knows that she's got a different soul in her body now and she just threw him away because she was just done with that crap. I liked the way they did that one because without the commoners who work for the nobles would fall apart very quickly and lose power very quickly. Um, and of course, the nobles are all like, we're of noble blood and blah, blah, blah. And the Duke's daughter is like, no, you're not. Like, they're picking on a commoner knight. They outcast commoner knights all the time, which is stupid. But so there's like this huge kerfuffle going on in her and her family's fifth, and she goes to the village and ends up overhearing this kerfuffle, and of course stands up to protect the commoner knights. And of course, the noble, not being able to do anything to her, knowing who she is sitting there saying, "You're protecting these commoners for blah, blah, blah. I have noble blood. I am more important." And she turns around and says, "Your ancestors were commoners, you idiot. You think just because you're born noble now means anything? Like, y'all started out as commoners. Because of the hard work of your ancestors, you were granted a noble title. You all were commoners." Um, Her ancestry, on the other hand, um, the first in her ancestry that they had been able to go back to was a mage, and then became emperor of another kingdom, and then the two kingdoms married, naming the king emperor, the her ancestor the emperor, and then somewhere along the line, one of her ancestors were just like, I don't want this power. I'm going to pass it on to my good friend. And he became emperor instead. And then it became basically tradition that the empress or the crown princess would come from the duchy. It has always been that way. Um, so her ancestry didn't start out as commoners, they started out as mages, which mages are equal. What was it? Is it a marquise? It's right under the duke. Who's the next one that has the highest power right under the duke? Is it a count or a marquise? I can't remember. Uh, God, that is irritating. I never can remember. Um, Give me a second because that's going to irritate me if I cannot. It's really going to. Not bobble. Yeah, it's a marquise. Okay, so it's emperor, empress, king, queen, prince, princess, duke, duchess, marquise, marquise, um, count, or earl. Both are used for the count name, so you can do earl or count. And then countess for the female, viscount, viscountess, baron, baroness. And then, of course, you have knight and dame, and then commoners. Um, it says it's raining, but it's not. My computer is awesome. My phone's even worse. So, okay, got that. So, ooh, um, our female lead was a viscount's daughter, um, who had been lost at a young age, or she was kidnapped, something along those lines, because they used to be a pretty powerful family. Um, but yeah, mages' powers were equal to a marquise, um, depending on their power range. If they were really powerful, it'd be marquise. If they were in the middle, it'd be a count, and anything lower, they were just known as mages. Um, but if they had a certain amount of power, they were given a title of count or marquise, um, which is how most of the nobles, which is how some of the nobles got their power, because not everyone has the ability to wield magic. Um, well, has the ability to use mana or spirits. Now, the Duke's daughter does not realize that she also has the capabilities of a mage. Um, she kind of uses her power subconsciously and doesn't realize it. In fact, one of my favorite parts of this story is that when she wants something, when she first got into the body, into um, the Duke's daughter's body, uh, she was really ill with a fever, and she turns over and wants to get some water, but none of the maids are around, and no one can hear her outside of her room. And so she looks over and was like, I need some water. And just kind of just says it, but can't move, and reaches out her hand. And then the drink floats over to her, and she takes a sip and sets it down onto the nightstand next to her. And when she wakes up the next morning feeling a whole lot better, she's like, someone must have been in the room and noticed that I wanted some water, and I just didn't see who it was. Like, she just kind of brushes it off. Well, it ends up happening again when she's out in public. She's at a boutique, and uh, someone from the noble faction is trying to act like their top dog. Um, Now, given the Duke's daughter is not the only Duke's daughter, but is the only Duke's daughter with extreme power equal to the Crown Prince. So another Duke's daughter is like picking a fight with her at a boutique in a roundabout way that nobles do because it's elegant. It's just polite. It is etiquette um, to go about calling someone a bitch in a roundabout way. So instead of just coming straight out and saying you're all acting all high and mighty just because of blah blah and blah, they're beating around the bush with all their stupid little words, pretending like they're better. And she gets really irritated and she kind of storms out, grabbing her things, and she's like, "I'm not even going to deal with you." And so she leaves. And she gets back home, she walks into the doorway, and she's getting ready to go up the stairs, and then she just kind of stares at the stairs for a minute and is just like, I don't want to deal with this. And all of a sudden, she's teleported into her room. And she's looking around like, did I space out or something? And then so she calls in her maid. Um, I believe the maid's name was Nora. And she's like, "How did I get here?" And the maid looked at her and she's like, "You teleported, my lady." And she's like, "Yeah, right." Uh, and so she tells the maid to leave, and she's sitting on the little couch, just kind of trying to wrap her head around the situation still. And she's thinking about the diary that the Duke's daughter kept. Her thoughts, her feelings, people she didn't like and why she didn't like them, people she did like and why she liked them. She kept a very detailed diary. So she's thinking about where this diary would be because she hasn't been able to find it yet. She has most of her memories, but not all of them. So she's thinking about the diary and it comes floating to her and she looks over and the diary lands in her hands and she's just like, and she just sits there quietly with her gaping mouth for quite a while, drops the book, stands up, and runs out of her room, goes all the way to her dad's office, and says that her room is haunted. And of course, the Duke starts laughing because it was like a family prank. Because one of their um, skills that they're born with happens to be being able to move or lift objects with their minds. So they used to play pranks on each other, saying some part of the house was haunted. Of course, the Duke started it by playing games with his daughter, trying to cheer her up and stuff because her mother had passed away. And then she started doing the same with her dad when she noticed that her dad was overworking himself because he didn't want to think about his late wife. So they kind of did it as a game slash joke to cheer each other up. And so he's sitting there laughing and she's staring at him dead serious, like, I don't understand. And of course, she has to reveal to her dad that she can't remember everything. And of course, her dad flips out and he starts calling for the mages to come and check her out to make sure that there was nothing physically wrong with her. Um, and of course, because the mage's tower got a request to go to the Duke's daughter, The master of the tower decided that he was going to go in disguise so that he could see what the duke's daughter was like himself. Uh, and so she reveals to her dad that she doesn't remember everything, so she doesn't understand what he's talking about. And of course he flips out and he kind of feels a little heartbroken that she doesn't remember that part of her life. In fact, there was a lot that she didn't seem to remember as he was questioning her, waiting to get an answer back from the tower. So the knights that are with her and with the duke, the maids are trying to ask her questions like, "Do you remember this?" She can remember people and places, but all things that were related to magic, spirits, or um, certain relationships, or why she liked the crown prince, none of that seemed to ring a bell to her. It it made no sense. Now this is one transmigrator who didn't didn't go into a book or a video game. So she basically had no knowledge of the story. She just happened to get thrown into someone else's body and she was just like, what the hell? And occasionally her body will shut down like it's rejecting her soul. Um, so the mage of the tower comes back and goes to Zushi and examines her and starts asking her questions. What is your name? Blah, blah, blah. Where were you born? Blah, blah, blah. And he can tell she's lying. Um, that she doesn't really know much. The only thing she does know is that her mother died giving birth to her. That her and her father were really close because they kept trying to cheer each other up because of the loss of the Duchess. Um, but she doesn't remember anything about magic. Um, she keeps saying that ghosts are following her everywhere and it seems like they're trying to help, but she's scared, is what she's saying. She doesn't know her exact age. She doesn't know her full name. She knows her first name and her last name, not her middle names. Um, she doesn't remember um, her time at the academy where she was learning how to use her magic. Um, but according to the Duke, she would have no memory of that because she was still young when she went and she only stayed for a year and then they could teach her no more, which is why she was given the title of a genius and they were going to make her tower master, but her father refused. Um, which is why the current tower master is tower master and she is not. Um, he was the second choice. uh, which of course the tower master after that never really kept it was never really interested in it, but since he got it he was just like, okay, yeah, whatever. And no one's ever told him anything. He only started hearing about the duke's daughter after the female lead and her fiance and the duke's fiance, the, the princess's fiance, were doing their shit. And of course she was flipping her shit because she was extra jealous and shit. And then he was even more shocked to hear that the obsessive Duke's daughter had dumped the crown prince. Um, it was that was a really cool story. I don't remember much after that. I do remember that the master of the tower ends up sticking around her constantly. Um, Whenever he's got free time or he just gets really bored and doesn't want to be in the tower anymore, focusing on work, he just wants to go and relax a little, he will always go and find her. That is about as much as I can remember. I will have to find that story again at some point. This one is kind of the same, but instead of magic, um, today the Duke's Daughters uh, has fun again. Um, this one doesn't have magic, at least I don't think so, but they have already mentioned spirits. Um, so I'm guessing she's going to find out real quick that she also has this type of gift, um, or something like that, which will be really interesting to see. Of course, her train of thought was ruined by Lucas, who is the Information Guild leader, who is also very handsome, by the way. But anyway, I'm going to stop here for today. My throat's drying out. Still have a lot that I want to talk about, but I can't right now. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever time of the day it is for you. And I hope to see you all again soon.